All right, so one question I've gotten over and over again through the years is how can I get a good sound out of my amp? Like, how do I get a good bluesy, overdriven tone? Like, a lot of times people are asking how I'm getting the sound I get out of the videos I create on YouTube. And there's a lot of variables. Sometimes I'm using a Kemper, sometimes I'm just playing straight through the amp. So it's always a hard question to answer, and it's a hard thing to try and help somebody with because I don't know what their setup is. I don't know what their guitar is and all that. But I wanted to make a video just demonstrating that you can take the cheapest possible gear. This is a cheap crate amplifier. I got this, I bought something from somebody on Craigslist years ago, and the guy just threw in this amp. It's been sitting in a closet. It's not like something I would use, but I thought I'd bring it out just to demonstrate that this amp, these sell for like 50 bucks. This crate, what is this, a XT15R. I don't know much about it. But that, and then I've got a cheap old 1960s K value leader guitar. Now, I bought this because I saw Lonnie Johnson playing one. I'm a big Lonnie Johnson fan. But I thought it was when I saw him playing it, thought it was so cool. It's so unique looking. These are cheaply built, cheaply made guitars, a cheap pickup. Everything about it is cheap. And so I thought, they sell, you can buy them used for 300 bucks, somewhere in there, 300 to 400. But I thought I'd use this guitar, so I'm out of it. There's no excuses. It's not like I'm using any high-end anything. This is cheap everything. Can I get a good blues sound? Can I get a good, like, pure, almost like a tube sound? This is a solid-state amp, and I was able to dial in a pretty decent tone. So I'm just, kind of winging it there, but I wanted to show you what this sounds like. Now, it sounds kind of boxy. I realize some of that's the size of the amp. And the other thing is, I'm not using anything to get the sound of the amp into the camera. Normally, I would use some kind of a digital interface like the aux, the universal audio aux, or a Kemper or something like this. I just have one mic that's sitting right out of view here. It's picking up my voice, picking up the amp. I wanted to just put it all to the test just to show you that even with an old crate amp, you can still get a decent sound. The mistake, and so I want to show you how to do it, or at least what my thought process is for this, and it really just comes down to the volumes. Getting the right gain volume, getting the right master volume, and getting the right guitar volume. The EQ and stuff, you can work on that too, but the one mistake I see from when I see people like the Active Melody site, we do a site member challenge, if you don't know, on Active Melody. Every month we submit, we all have a topic and we submit videos. And when I see people trying to get an overdrive sound, sometimes I'll hear somebody using, and it can even be an expensive amp, but they'll put too much gain and it's too crunchy sounding. Now that sounds kind of okay because it sounds more Chuck Berry, but when you try and play chords, I don't know. You can't really hear. It's too muddy sounding. So the key to the whole thing for me, and this works whether you're trying to get the bluesy overdrive sound or even like a pretty clean sound, is stay away from the clean channel. If your amp has 2 channels, just stay away from that. Go to your overdrive channel and add a little bit of gain. Even if you're trying to play something clean and pretty, you need that overdrive to give you that sustain. It fattens up your sound and it gives you enough sustain that it makes it sound. It doesn't just the note doesn't come out of your guitar and just fall. And that's what I seem to notice when I'm playing clean channel. So what I like to do is I like to take the gain, and if you don't know, you have 2 volumes. So like the gain would be considered your preamp. So that's like overdriving the signal before it actually leaves the amp. And then your other one would be your master volume. Sometimes it's called gain and volume. Like in this one, it's called gain and level. But sometimes it's called volume and master. But it's the same premise. One is the preamp, and the other is sort of the main volume of the amp. And so what you're trying to do is drive it with the gain or the volume knob, and then dial it back with the other one. So it's like it's breaking up the sound, but it's not too loud. It's not like breaking your windows. So it's a combination of those two. And then on your guitar, you've got that volume as well. So what I like to do with that is I like to dial my guitar back I like to turn it all the way up and then dial it back, 20%. So take a little bit off the top. And then from there, I can work with the amp. And it's just these two knobs. You're just trying to dial it in. You want to dial the gain. You don't want to push it too hard. Just give it a little bit. A little goes farther than you think. So it's just really trying to get that dialed in. The other thing I would mention is the EQ. And what I like to do is I like to just sort of flatline them, make them all sort of in the middle, and then just start with the high. See what you need on this amp. I need it all the way up, or at least with this guitar, and that's because this pickup, it's a neck pickup, so they tend to be a little bassier. And so that's something else to think of. Which pickup are you on? If you're on the bass pickup, you're going to probably need to, if you want to compensate for that, you would need to turn up the highs a little bit. The mids, they sound about okay to me in the middle, and then the same with the lows. I wouldn't want them any lower than that, or it'd be too muddly. Now I can't I can't really be super dynamic with this amp, but I can get a decent sound. And if this wasn't in view, if you couldn't see the amp, you'd think it might be, like an old tube amp. So it's not a bad sounding amp and guitar. Cheap guitar, cheap amp. My point in all of this is don't go chasing gear. It's very expensive, it takes a lot of time, and it's taking away from what you really should be focusing on, and that's playing. The thing I've noticed through the years is it doesn't matter what amp, if it's a cheap crate amp or if it's a really high-end boutique amp that's, tube driven or whatever, I always end up, in the end, kind of sounding the same. It's true. I mean, even with gears and with pedals, I've kind of done that. I've bought lots of pedals through the years. And what I end up finding is you've got a sound in your head, and whatever I'm dealing with, I try and dial in that sound that's in my head. And so it all ends up sort of sounding the same. So where you need to spend your time is with your fingers and the touch. Are you hitting it? Are you, if you're using a pick, are you being too aggressive? It's those kinds of things that affect your tone, and that's your playability. You can always change amps. When I started playing, I started playing with a PV Rage. That was the first amp I got. It was even smaller than that. Well, maybe it was about the same as this, but it didn't have any reverb in it. Oh, that's the other thing I should mention is always trying to add a little reverb if you've got it. But that amp did not have it, and I remember the first time I never heard it. I didn't even know that was a thing until a friend of mine had an amp, which was also a PV amp, and I plugged into that with reverb, and I was just like, "Whoa! Oh my!" It sounded like I was playing in a stadium, and I couldn't get that out of my head how big that sound was. So I wanted that so bad. All right. So the moral of this story: you can get a decent tone out of any amplifier. It's just a matter of playing with those variables I was telling you, the volume, the overdrive, the reverb, if you've got it. You've just got to dial it in. And sometimes you have to do that and then step away from it. Or even do that and record it and listen to the recording later. And you'll hear that it's not as bad as you might think. So if that's helpful to somebody, leave a comment. Actually, I'd like to know what gear you have. So feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you're playing through. And I'm just trying to save some of you because I've been down this path for so many years, and I know that I always come back to the best energy spent is spent on learning how to play something new, listening to new records, playing with my friends. That's where the fun comes. And your tone really comes out of your playing in the end. Most of it does anyway. It really does. So hopefully that's helpful to you. If it has been, let me know. Leave me a comment, and we'll see you in the next video.